I'm sure we're going to discover more on the success of the new startup. I'll move on to Charaka Perera, who is part of the senior management team at the SLTMobitel and e-channeling. And we know e-channeling is a model for several countries having pioneered in Sri Lanka. Charaka, your perspectives.
Pleasant evening to, rather afternoon to all of you, and I would like to thank the FITTIS and NISTA for inviting SLTMobitel and e-channeling to be part of this lovely audience. See, before I give you an interpretation of the telemedicine and its explanations, I just want to enlighten this audience to say that we are living in a world where all our actions are making a certain disruption out there. And if you really look at, and if you connect this into digital healthcare, today the digital healthcare, if you really look at in an era, we live in an era where the preventive sicknesses are mechanized through precision medicine. So biology has now converted into technology. Right? The interception between biology and technology is the norm of 21st century health. So this is the first thing that we as a company has identified. And now we are looking at how we could transform this to a next level of an experience, is what SLTMobitel and e-channeling is doing. The other thing is, when we make these transformations taking place, I think it's a disruption altogether. When I say disruption, it's always, I consider we as a driver in an autonomous car, right? And in this disruption, if we can't make that difference, is something that we will fail. So we put a lot of effort in identifying the opportunity in this medicine or health emergence, how we could facilitate. So 20 years back, as Nista said, the e-channeling transformed the first friction of connecting the doctor. For 20 years, we have gone, 22 years, but now is where the real transformation has to happen in understanding this thing called telemedicine. Telemedicine and telehealth, I think in the best interest of the audience, all will try to understand as to what these two are. Well, I'll start with the telehealth. Telehealth is very, I would say, clinical services combined with the clinical together, but powered through a telecommunication partner and technology. So this is where the telehealth, so if you really look at, e-channeling falls under the telehealth. And then during the COVID, the 247 lines that we launched comes under this. And telemedicine is the game changer. I would say it's the clinical part of the telehealth. Right? Telemedicine today gives endless opportunities. I think the COVID itself transformed in our way of thinking to really connect to the households and how we could have a distant clinical service given. So I would say in-person cannot be always avoided. So there is an element of in-person has to come in. But then when it comes to the diagnostics, this is where the telemedicine can come in very handy. So if you go on to understand the benefits of telemedicine at today's context, if you really look at the cost is one. And then we all as patients going into the doctors, we only spend about 20 minutes. Balance 80% is out there trying to connect ourselves. But this is where the opportunity lies in. Right? So if you really look at as a whole, my take, I think my colleagues shed a lot of thoughts in statistics, but here we are in a world living in a lot of opportunity that we can disrupt, and as a company, as e-channeling and SLTMobitel is working towards this infrastructure, making national policies, making lot ecosystems out there, because you cannot automate anything without putting the infrastructure right. So that's where I think we are putting a lot of thought in. So that's my take, Nista.
Is that a real, what is the cost behind it? You think affordability, despite the convenience and cost saving, people still find it's too expensive. Where do you see we will make it more affordable?
See, how I could address that is, Nesta, again, I would like to go back to the infrastructure a bit. Because if you really look at this Doc 990 e-channeling is very Colombo-centric. So if you really look at the affordabilities and all, it has not been a problem so far. So I guess we very recently did a price revision, and apparently this price revision was done after 20 years. We were in the 99 ticket for long, long years. Now, thanks to this tax escalations, the economic distress all put together, we pushed to make it 399, the doctor channeling, because if you really look at the doctors also have changed it. So how I would like to say is, well, this is where I think is the wow factor is out there. If you really look at the statistics of the healthcare industry, right? We have to be happy the processes in which the entire healthcare system has evolved is in a fantastic stage. So if you ask me, the process is properly mapped. What's missing is connecting the dot and giving that digital experience. So for that, that's why I said, as a company, if you really look at this nation's infrastructure to connect widely and at least to give an internet penetration to about more than 50%. And today, I think all of the telco operators have facilitated of giving you mobile connections more than the population. So we have 32 million connections, than 21 million connections. So we have smartphones. So all these have to facilitate to ensure that the cost comes down, and we have to go into the grassroots. So grassroots transformations have not happened. Now, if you really look at on a state perspective, 50% of opulent patient to 95% of hospitalizations, about 99% of, I would say, people visiting hospitals, all are in the state sector. So when you, at least, this given free. So I guess we can, as companies, e-channeling is next move is to, see how we could go to the grassroots, go to the 70% rural sector and make that transformation. So that's where we closely work with the health ministry, and then we work with the national medical regulatory authorities to create a pharmaceutical ecosystems. Because if you really look at the experience in all of this, we are, as I said, Nista, we are only addressing one part of it. It's only connecting the doctor. But there are so many other things to look at. So if you go and connect this, obviously the cost can come down. So this is the next phase of transformation, because we are anyway pressed to do it. So that's my take.
Okay, thank you.
I'm for the telemedicine as well as the video conferencing and stuff. But on the other hand, now all the infrastructures and everything, it's already been laid. That we have the internet as well as the platforms are there. But what about the regulatory or the from the health sector side? Well, I'm asking the regulator from the Ministry of Health as well as from the doctors and the people who are really involved in the health sector, the regulatory wise, do they have the authority as well as power to something like prescribe? But on the other hand, yes, if we take a consultant, what they are taking their decision completely based on the reports what they are getting. Then, of course, we can do. But from the regulator side, there's a big gap which we need to fill, I think. Somewhere in 2004, I can remember medical association, they were trying to do some policy document on this digitalized health sector. But actually, I don't know exactly what's the status of it currently. Would like to know something better from you.
Excellent.
So I think I can take the regulatory thing. It was a good question that you gentlemen, you raised it, because frankly speaking, telemedicine to whatever the regulatories are being done. And if you really look at, if you go back to the establishments of, I think there was a national e-health policy document that they have done. So we are still on that. Since nothing has been updated. So there are a set of doctors are called health medicine-driven, personalities. They all have got together and now they're formulating one. at the moment. So because if you really look at the health medicines together, all put together, still there is no a proper document to regularize the telemedicines or whatever said and done on the last mile deliveries of the drugs. So all are currently being done. So still we are running loose. The advantage why it's given as a test run in Colombo is because whatever we are talking is very Colombo centric, right? So that's where it is not being felt at the state sector. So but at the moment, the good news is they are doing the regulatories, ordinances all are being currently done.
Thank you. Yeah.
Right. My question is very interesting, the discussion. Each company, if you could explain what are the United Nations sustainable goal, which includes the community development, that is one of the mandatory requirements, our responsibility. If you all can have 1 minute, or every one of us explain us what are the sustainable development would be taken place, that could be one of the fundamental area where leading companies are doing. Thank you.
Okay. See, I think e-channeling currently is taking under the, if I'm getting you right, sir, under the ESG platform, we are trying to now, we already launched a concept called eco-channeling, where the last mile drug deliveries are all delivered only on the medicine. So we are eliminating all of those and see how we could contribute. And if you really look at the ecosystem in which the medicines to consultations all put together, there are a lot opportunity in building a sustainability-driven methodology. So that's an opportunity. So as I said, that all of us being operators, we are only a one connect out of many. So we have to work with the government, and I think after the COVID, it really opened up. That's why we as a company, SLTMobitel, working with the government to see, as like this gentleman said, so whether we can regularize this properly. So under that, we have categorically mentioned the ESG initiatives to come in and see how we could contribute to this. So it's been addressed for the time being.
The thing is it possible to make a nationalized policy, to make a centralized database, interconnection with the GPs and the pharmaceuticals, everyone together? Why we can't make it like that, one?
Sri and I both can loop in. See, I think you mentioned something very interesting, the GPs, right? I think if you really look at the government practitioners, they don't have an ecosystem to be connected and have that experience of what we give it to the hospitals. So these are currently being done. I think to a certain extent, a lot of the players have done this, but it has again become very Colombo-centric. So imagine you find the GP in your territory, because if you really look at all of us, in Sinhala we say the game dostar mahatta, right? So we first go to that person. So that ecosystem has never been developed. If that is being developed, then obviously it connects to the pharmacies, and then they have their own ecosystem in their town and territories. So good that you brought up. So this is exactly why we are here as an industry, players, because we are no longer only connecting the doctors. We are now looking collaboratively, see how we could change this ecosystem. So I'm happy that you're bringing these questions up. So it's been addressed.
Thank you.
Sometimes back, e-channeling had a plan, right, to integrate the government channeling system as well, right? I want to know where it stands currently, because I think when e-channeling had its monopoly, it's like 60% of the back ends of private hospitals also being given by e-channeling for channels, right? But even if you see up to date, its OP split is 50-50 states and private, and IP stands at 80-20. And even if you say 50-50, it is only for the pre-medical care, they go for private. Post-medical, again, they go back to the government sector mostly. So I just want to know how this Doc 990 as well as e-channeling going to make this as a state thing, where even if you walk into a government hospital today, everyone stands in the queue, it's not systemized, and people wait for hours, the efficiencies and everything falls apart. So I think it's one of the leading to channeling digitalized people to take that responsibility, and also Mobitel being a part of the state, it's a very free lobbying, not free lobbying, it's easy lobbying that you have. So I want to understand where this stands at the moment.
See, I'm excited to see, these insights coming from, sir like you. See, actually speaking, one of the biggest challenges we have with the national hospital, I would say the ecosystem. And that's why I said, when we know the opportunity, 95% of the hospitalizations happen in the state sector. So we are just 5% trying to make a business. It's not the way forward. We understand it. So there are a lot of challenges going by in making this transformation. As you know, the ministry itself is a challenge sometimes. There are two phobias. One is the technophobia, the other one is a purposeful phobia. Right? So it's not been allowed to do it. So that's why we are pick and choose some of the hospitals and trying to make this, because we cannot make this automation without addressing their backends. So even in the hospital, I'm talking the private sector-based hospitals, they can be tech-savvy, but still there are a lot of challenges we as players will have. So I would say it's a long shot, if I'm to be very honest with you, right? But the easiest thing we can do is to help the GP out there, and then come into this and see how in this ecosystem we can do. Because it's nice to say that we are going out there, but if you ask me, running in the e-channeling, I will not take that lead now, and I would go and see what are the quick fixes I can do. And if you can make that ecosystem to the GP channeling, then you have more of a base operation, at least a concentration of about 10-kilometer radius. So that's how we are trying to come into the play. But on the infrastructure side, we are supporting a lot. That's where Mobitel comes in and giving this facilitation to a greater extent. That's how we came with this 247 line, getting the entire nation connected. So that is now we are getting into, as Nista also said, I think one of the gentlemen also said, we go into the dengues and all of this, the communicable diseases, we give access to them. So they can at least get an advice. So there's so much of opportunity. Yes, we want to go, but not immediately.